She said it without looking at me. Not tonight. 3 words, flat, casual, as if she were declining dessert. Her phone lit the room for half a second, face down on the nightstand, a vibration she pretended not to feel. I watched her reflection in the darkened window instead of her face, the way her jaw tightened, the way her breathing changed, like she'd just remembered something important she meant to forget. I nodded, rolled onto my back. Okay. The word tasted wrong, too cooperative. She turned away from me immediately, too fast, her shoulder blades sharp under the sheet, a distance that hadn't existed yesterday. Or maybe it had. Maybe I'd only just learned how to measure it. Another vibration, softer this time. She shifted, reached for the phone, then stopped herself, still faced away from me. I stared at the ceiling fan and counted rotations, controlled my breath, slowed my pulse. This wasn't about sex. I understood that the moment she said it like it meant nothing. It was about absence. Something or someone had already taken my place. I didn't move, didn't ask, didn't push. That was my first mistake before. This time I stayed still, and in the silence I felt it settle into my bones. Something had changed. The next morning she was gentle, too gentle. She kissed my cheek longer than necessary, made coffee, asked about my day like she'd forgotten the answer on purpose. Guilt performs kindness beautifully. I watched from behind my eyes and said the right things, smiled when prompted, let her believe the surface was intact. But my mind replayed the night before on a loop, not the words, the tone. It wasn't refusal, it was dismissal. There were other things, small things, the kind you excuse until they stack up and block the door. She showered with her phone on the counter now, face down, always face down. She laughed at messages she didn't share, took calls in the garage, said names I didn't recognize, then corrected herself too quickly. I told myself stories to soften the edges. Work stress, a friend going through something, my imagination. But denial is just imagination with a purpose. One night while she slept, her phone vibrated again. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The name flashed across the lock screen. Just a first name. No heart, no emoji. That was worse. I memorized it. The time, the pattern. I lay there, inches from her warmth, and felt colder than I ever had. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to know. I became quieter. That was the shift. I stopped reaching for her, stopped asking questions, stopped filling silences. I gave her space so clean it felt surgical. She noticed. Of course she did. "Everything okay?" she asked one night, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," I said, and meant something else entirely. I started watching instead of feeling. Her schedule tightened, her excuses sharpened. Gym runs that lasted too long, errands that didn't require makeup. I checked phone records, not messages, patterns, frequency, duration, times that coincided with my absence. There it was, a number without a name, repeated, consistent. I didn't call it. I followed her one afternoon instead. From a distance, no drama, no shaking hands, just observation. She parked 2 blocks from a cafe she never mentioned, walked like someone who knew exactly where she was going. He was already there. They didn't kiss, not at first. They sat close, too close for friends. Their knees touched. Her hand rested on his forearm like it belonged there. I felt something try to rise in me. Rage, grief. I pressed it down. Control is quieter than emotion and far more effective. I took photos, not of faces, of body language, of intimacy, of proof. I left before they noticed. At home, I made dinner, asked about her day, listened while she lied with impressive detail. That night she said, "Not tonight," again. This time I understood. The confirmation came in an envelope, plain, white, no return address. Inside, a hotel receipt, 2 names, 1 room, multiple dates. Her name, his. I sat at the kitchen table and read it twice, then a third time, slower, as if it might change. It didn't. She came home an hour later humming, dropped her keys, smiled when she saw me. I slid the envelope across the table, didn't look at her. "Explain," I said. Silence stretched, thick, heavy. Her breath caught. I heard it, the sound of a plan collapsing. She tried to speak, failed. Tried again. "It's not—" I raised a hand, calm, precise. "Don't." She cried then. Not for me, for herself, for the loss of control. I watched like I was observing weather. "How long?" I asked. She whispered the answer. "Shorter than I'd hoped, shorter than I'd feared." I nodded. The truth was ugly, but it was clean. I didn't yell, I didn't insult her. I packed, slowly, deliberately, folding clothes with care, each movement a message. She followed me from room to room, apologizing, explaining, unraveling. I let her talk. When she finally stopped, exhausted by her own words, I turned. "I knew," I said, "before you think." Her eyes widened. "I stayed quiet on purpose," I continued. "I needed you comfortable, honest." She stared at me like I'd become someone else. "You made choices," I said. "I collected consequences." I handed her my wedding ring. "I'm done." She reached for me. I stepped back. That was the last power move. I live alone now. The silence is different here. Cleaner. Honest. Sometimes I think about the man she chose, what he thought he was winning. I don't feel anger or sadness, just clarity. She didn't take anything from me. She revealed herself, and that made all the difference. I didn't lose my wife. I gained my exit.